Sound is not working. Thank you everybody who is tuned in right now. We will get started in just a second. While they are doing their mulligans and stuff, this is gonna be Philippines versus Canada. Their Crane versus Crab matchup. We have Kakita GA on the Need 10 Pupil deck here, very focused on this Need 10 Pupil, looking to buff it up and just duel your way to victory. Thanks to the power of Elegant Tessin, and some other restand type effects like Return the Offense, which will also trigger the Need 10 Pupil. Meanwhile, on Action Johnny's side for Canada, this is called Bullies, Breakers, and Butches. This is the Berserker deck, so it's got your Yakumo, it's got your Crisis Breaker, and it's really centered around using these Berserkers along with the Wicked Tetsubo to sort of bully your way to breaks. So players have started here. Get that enlarged for you guys. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Saturday. This is round 5 of the World Cup, so this is the deciding round to see who gets into the top cut. My understanding is that I think both of these teams are 2-2. So let's take a look and see real quick while they're doing this. Some 1-drops being bought here. World Cup standings. It appears that this is, yes, in fact, a 2-2 game. Or a 2-2 round, rather. So both Philippines and Canada is sitting at 2-2. I believe the score of the set is, it looks like it's currently 3-1 Canada. So if Action Johnny can win here, then that might be the deciding game. If I think there was another game, I saw L5R and Algara, Matthew Beck, going on a little bit earlier today, so maybe that has resolved already. But if not, then this would be a match point for Canada. So a lot of stuff being bought here thanks to the power of Shinsei's Last Hope. The Student of Anatomy is able to come out for free with 1 fade on it. The Dishonor does not really matter in this matchup too much, so you don't really mind. Also, the character has 0 glory, so no stat effect here. So 5 bids coming out on both sides. If anybody in the chat knows how the other match went between L5R and Algara, please let me know. If it's still going on, then obviously it hasn't been resolved yet, but we'll wait and see here. So City of the Rich Frog for Kakita GA here. Going to show 2 Proving Grounds. That's pretty dope. But right now it doesn't really have a duelist besides just this Kakita Dojo on the board. First player is GA, so sitting on 7 Fate. Could easily have a conflict character here. Just going to go poke Political Void with his Kala Delegate most likely. Oh no, going for Earth instead. Void, not super high value for Action Johnny to attack right now, other than just denying the ring. Obviously on GA side there's no characters with Fate, so don't really need to worry about voiding anything off here. But GA actually going to go for the Void Ring here instead of going for Earth. I think that's totally reasonable as well. Shinsei's Last Hope face up right now, sitting at 3 strength and blank during the conflict. We're going to see a double defense here from Johnny with the Quartermaster and the Student of Anatomies both coming out here. Strength 3 for Johnny and Strength 1 for GA. GA can easily have a conflict character to drop into here, so Need 10 Pupil can just fall in and do some Kakita Dojoing here. Of course, the Student of Anatomies would be able to react to that and just go ahead and blank the Need 10 Pupil for the duration of this phase. There is the Need 10 Pupil coming down now. Kakita Dojo would still bow somebody here, but very likely we're just going to see there's the sacrifice to blanket. Kakita Dojo just going to come out, and Action Johnny actually going to go ahead and bid 2 here, which is going to allow GA to go ahead and honor this Need 10 Pupil, but what that also does is deny 2 card draws from these 2 Proving Grounds. So maybe GA should have considered bidding to win there. That is something that I do notice that sometimes players forget about, right? Like, if you're up on a duel, you kind of expect the other person to just go ahead and bid 1, but sometimes you can actually, especially in close duels, you can just go ahead and bid to win or bid to tie, so that way bad stuff doesn't happen to you. Admit defeat going to come out now to the bow of the Student of Anatomy, so we might just see the break on this on Shinsei's Last Hope, regardless of the Niten pupil being blanked. You know, by blanking it, really what you're doing is just you're reducing 2 stats from it, so you know, not the worst thing in the world, but still potentially impactful here. And so with the bow on the Student of Anatomies, it makes restaining this character kind of awkward unless Johnny has a Tessin. But he chooses not to use it here. Even if he Tessins, he would not be winning the conflict, so no point in doing that. We'll see the Void Ring go off on the Student of Anatomies. Let's check Johnny's discard here. He did not use Cute and Kita to start, so it doesn't really have a ton in the bin besides this Gallant Quartermaster, so there's no rebuild live right now. So this Student of Anatomies is probably just going to die. Alright, and there's the Tessin for the Niten pupil, and a let go on the Tessin. This Crane deck only has the Tessins as their attachments. It's just the 3 Tessins, so let go will be very dead on everything else. So in that situation, it's worth it just to go ahead and burn it there. Now we see some attachments come out on this Crisis Breaker. But the Fan and a Katana, 2 conflicts remaining for Johnny, so he could very easily just go for 2 here. This Crisis Breaker to go ahead and attack. There's a Watch Commander as well. Probably try to take out the City of the Ridge Frog. That's a pretty high value target for Johnny. There's Let Go coming out on the Watch Commander, so good patience there from GA. You generally don't want to use your let goes on the free attachments, right? So like the low value ones, but sometimes it's necessary to do it. And if GA felt like it was pressing, then that might have been a good idea to go and let one of those go. But waiting for the high value stuff, right? So Watch Commander is pretty good. Doing stuff like J Tetsubo and doing like Wicked Tetsubo obviously can be pretty impactful. Neither of the Tetsubos are in play here since Johnny's only on 1 fate. Might have been better to save the Watch Commander for the battle. No, well, the thing about Watch Commander is that you always try to want to pre-play it if you can, because that gives you the most, especially when you're about to attack into something. You want to go ahead and try to get the most value out of it possible, right? So if you wait until you attack, then your opponent gets a free window to play a card without Watch Commander being able to trigger. And so here's a Bonsai underneath 10 people. Defend Your Honor comes out, and counter Bonsai now from Johnny. That'll put Johnny down to 3 cards, which is kind of not that many. And he chooses to kick it, and so that'll put him down to 8 honor at the end of this turn. This is the Fire Ring, so you can probably just go ahead and re-honor the Student of Anatomies. Meanwhile, for GA, a lot of fate has been spent here. Obviously, this Niten pupil was the bulk of it. And since Kakita Dojo is already burned to bow the student, or to do nothing actually, there's not a whole lot that GA can do here. So with the Bonsai resolving, that'll put this Crisis Breaker up to 9 attack, and that'll be enough to go ahead and discard all 3 of these holdings. So pretty huge hit there for Johnny. I think it might have been very well have been worth spending that honor. He chooses to honor the Crisis Breaker instead, so that will keep Voice of Honor off for GA. And GA is going to go ahead and pass. And here's Common Cause on the Student of Anatomies to go ahead and ready this Crisis Breaker. Johnny's still with the political attack left, and that Crisis Breaker sitting at 4 political, so pretty juicy. Really good starting hand for Johnny. And going in Earth, and so that'll even out the hand size differential here. Into the Forbidden City, actually kind of clutch here. We'll be able to go ahead and remove one of these attachments. We'll see if GA chooses to do the fan or the katana. I think long term you probably want to do the katana, but short term obviously fan gives you the most chance of Johnny not breaking here. But he would have had to have like another fan or a conflict character to drop into this conflict to break into the Forbidden City. So policy debate is discarded here. Curious that we didn't see that come out earlier. I figure you might have gone ahead and tried to do it during the conflict with that, the student anatomies, since you had the Need 10 pupil at 3. I guess if you had actually resolved the Kakita, or sorry, if you didn't get blanked by the student anatomies, that might have changed things a little bit. But you know, maybe just a little bit gun shy from Johnny choosing to bid to win on that Kakita Dojo duel, and just chose not to do it. I mean, I think you kind of just have to go for it at that point when you have 2 proving grounds up, and a lot to game. Could have plucked that common cause from the hand, limit Johnny to only 1 attack. Here's a cunning negotiator coming out for GA. Kept the Kagyu too, so what that tells me probably was sitting maybe on like a political rival or something like that. But regardless, the cunning negotiator does come out. Iron Mine available for Johnny here, and Yakumo also pretty solid. Only 1 fate for Johnny, so still kind of hurting for fate. 1 keeper in the discard that I can see. Yeah, it's just the 1 keeper actually. First player for Johnny this turn, so he's going to be able to attack in. Probably going to go militarily. Your safest bet with GA's robe. Probably now still into the Forbidden City. You're not really afraid of much here, so I mean, yes, you lose the katana. That kind of sucks. But I think it's a small price to pay for a otherwise pretty tame province to attack. We have some spectators joining in right now. If you are just tuning in, this is the match between the Philippines crane and the Canadian crab. Alright, we're going to see an attack here. Yeah, we are going to see Yakima go in on Void. Choosing not to send the Crisis Breaker. I mean, I guess if you really need to, you can just go ahead and summon the Crisis Breaker in if this gets too dicey. But you're going to be winning the conflict to start with, at least here. So just going for the Void Rain, try to kill this Neat Pupil off and protect your own Crisis Breaker. The Iron Mine obviously sitting there is nice. Will prevent this Crisis Breaker from leaving. Here's a kind of Negotiator duel. And this one's just to go ahead and honor the Cunning Negotiator. Here's a Bonsai coming out on Yakumo now. See if a voice is available. Looks like GA gonna opt to go ahead and save that voice. And with the bonsai now at exact C's for breaking, here's a counter bonsai coming out for GA. Could see a defend your honor here from Johnny. But opts to hold on. Johnny now down to the 7 honor, so needs to be a little careful here. If I'm GA and I have any way to go ahead and swing some card advantage in my favor, I might consider dropping my bids down. It would, of course, depend on how good my hand is, and if GA is sitting on a strong hand here, then probably want to go ahead and pull the trigger and drop in bids. Yakumo, of course, not bowing as a result of his ability, and Nitzen Pupil now runs into an upholding authority, so we're going to see a no defense pass here from GA. Now, we could just go ahead and favorable ground out, but if you have all singletons, I think I'd go ahead and break this upholding authority, just so I can go ahead and pitch this mine. And yeah, it looks like that is what GA is going to do, and we see not all singletons, but instead we see 2 Defend Your Honor and 2 Force Shame. So those are the dupes that we can go for here. There is the Voice of Honor, of course, as we saw previously. Captivating Story we also see here. This is a card you don't see very often because you don't see a ton of water rolls, but this is during a conflict. Choose a character that's participating alone on your side. That character gets +1 political until the end of conflict for each face-up province you control, and you can remove 1 fate from the character and honor it. So, rare source of political pump that you can get here from this Captivating Story. And then also that extra honor effect if you want to go ahead and kick it. Johnny choosing to discard 2 copies of Force Shame, so that seems like pretty good value. I think it might have been between that or the Let Go. The Defend Your Honor is not super relevant to you right now because as Crab, you can tend to just get higher than most of your opponents. Right now, for example, nothing really threatening Johnny on board. Both of these characters sitting at 3 since the Nitzen Pupil has not dueled yet, and both Yakumo and the Crisis Breaker are just naturally bigger than that, sitting at 4 and 6. GA having some connection problems here, but we very likely see this Iron Mine discarded. We don't know what's in Johnny's hand, but I would have to venture and say that he probably has a rebuild. Yeah, it looks like GA is DCing right now, so hopefully able to reconnect. Clock ticking down right now, which is counting against GA's time, and hopefully we can get a reconnection here. Seeing a fail to connect to the game. Oh, there we go. Reconnected now. Alright, so we are discarding the Iron Mine. Johnny now down to 6 honor. I don't think that Johnny has a Assassinate in this deck. We'll take a look at the list real quick just to see. He does have 1x Assassination, so that is no longer really on. And I figured that if he had it already at this point, he probably would have assassinated this Nitzen Pupil. Pretty high value target there for him. Now we're going to see if Johnny chooses to go in on political. So Into the Forbidden City is not great. And here's Shameful Display, also not great. We are just going to see a defense here from GA. we'll go ahead and shameful this Caillou Envoy, which adds another Dishonor token to Johnny and will potentially prevent him from winning this air ring. Keep him low on honor. There is the shameful activation right there. Got a couple new followers. Thank you for the follow, Medallia, Dario Perry. Also a follow from Ide Yasuge. I saw you streaming earlier. Shoutouts to everybody who's been streaming these World Cup games. I have wanted to get more of them, but since a lot of the countries that are participating are European, the matches kind of happen at not ideal times for me, especially now that I am back in the office during the week. Oh, gotta scroll down here a little bit, just so that we can see the chat log. And yeah, that's going to be the last conflict of the turn. We'll see GA bump up to 12 honor, and now Johnny's sinking down to 5 honor. I really want to see GA go ahead and drop the bid here. I think that you're coming up on, you have a pretty good dynasty purchases here, and Johnny's in a situation where he has a Kuni Lab coming out, so he cannot bid high anymore. He will drop down to 4 honor at the beginning of this turn. We'll see the dupe come out in Yakumo and Kaizen bot here. I think if you're GA, we already know what's in your hand, so it's nothing of huge importance. You might just want to go ahead and buy the Yoshi on low fate, just so that you have stats on the board, and then you can kind of bully Johnny around on political. What you don't want to do is season the war, because you want Johnny to go ahead and lose that honor from the Kuni Lab. Alright, and so now we see the... Alright, so GA actually passed. And Johnny, on the other hand, is going to go ahead and use Kunihito. That's going to get him a Shugyasuki, which is going to allow him to draw some cards, despite being choked out on honor a little bit. And here's a rebuild coming out now to go ahead and put an Iron Mine in. So, interesting that he chose to use it now. I guess he wanted to do it before Voice of Honor got turned back on, because he knows that that GA has one in his in the hand. And we see another Crisis Breaker brought here too. So lots of military stats and lots of stats in general thanks to the Kuni Lab. And we're going to see a 3-2 bid here. So GA deciding that cards were more important than trying to choke Johnny out in honor. And so I think the honor pressure now is probably still kind of over. There is a chance for Johnny to go ahead and get back in the same kind of position that he was in going into this turn. It's going to be at 5 honor starting out. But it just depends on what rings are won here. GA being very conservative with the monies. Of course, this is a deck that runs through Political Rivals and Niten Pupils, which is kind of expensive, and so you can kind of buy stuff out of your hand, and you kind of want to reserve the money for that. But we already knew that GA didn't have any of that stuff from the previous turn, thanks to Upholding Authority. So maybe a little greedy play here, going in, trying to expect to draw a conflict character, rather than just go ahead and play your board and trying to choke the crap out a little bit. First attack here is going to be a Political Fire attack. 2 breaks for GA here. So making actually pretty decent progress on the break side of the board, but it is going to be a little tough just based on the sheer number of stats that Crab has right now. And so we see the Cunning Negotiator run into the Fertile Fields. That would let GA go ahead and draw a card here, and we're going to see we're going to see a double block here. So it's going to be the Yaski and the Crisis Breaker both coming in with the bonus from the Kuni Lab, putting them up to What is this? 9 with the favor? Yeah. So card drawn here first from Johnny to go ahead and use the fertile fields. Now we're going to see GA be able to use it. Draw a card here. GA not winning the conflict yet, but now there's a watch commander for Johnny. We do know that GA is sitting on 1 let go, so we could see the let go come out here on the watch commander. There it is. And now we'll probably Defend Your Honor going to come out for the Crisis Breaker onto the Cunning Negotiator. Both players bidding 1. GA going to lose an honor from the Watch Commander there. Now, with Johnny choosing to play it onto the Shrudyaski, what that probably tells me is that he's got a Tessin as one of his other cards now. Here's Captivating Story now. So with 3 face-up provinces, that's a buff. Bring him up to 10. Watch Commander does trigger here. And I believe the only political pumps that Johnny has in his deck are going to be these Ornate Fans, and so we've already seen 2 played. Keep in mind that this is a political conflict. Okay, there's the last fan. So all 3 fans in the top 20 for Johnny. Pretty good. We could see Kakita come in here, and that would be let GA draw 3 cards. So we had the Watch Commander, the Defend Your Honor, and the fan now played. Of course, that does burn your disguise, and you don't really want to do that if you can help it. Maybe if you're going to lose the conflict anyway, we'll see if GA values the stand more so than 3 cards. Medallia pointing out a little spell, a grammatical error there. So maybe if any of the Jigoku folks are watching, you might want to go ahead and fix that. It says each face-up province they opponent controls, so you might want to go ahead and change that to V or there. Alright, and so we are going to see Kakita come in here, and that's going to cost GA an honor, but we're going to see 3 cards drawn now for GA. So that is pretty big. And that'll be the end of that conflict here. So that was GA's opportunity to go ahead and get that card advantage, but right now Johnny doesn't really need to play that many more cards just because his board is looking pretty healthy right now. And so the Yaski now coming out with the Tessin. As I said previously, the Watch Commander going on the Tessin was a pretty big sign of him having the Unbow ready for this this Yaski. And yeah, it is a little misworded there for sure, because it is your own province, says. All right, and we hit this market of Kazunokami, which is pretty big, because that actually bows the Shuryasuki. This is a political conflict. No winning here. And we're going to see Kaizen block. So Kazunokami, of course, it's on reveal, so this province is now blank. And we were able to go ahead and bow the Yasuki. Now we're going to see the Kakita Dojo duel come out onto the Shuryasuki. Kaizen is blanked, but that also allows Kaizen to go ahead and get honored here. Likely now just to go ahead and see double pass. Voice is, of course, online now. And just the military conflict left for GA, and so if we're going to see something come out, my guess is it's probably just going to be a Niiten pupil. Oh, it's Steward Law, okay. So Steward Law comes out, that's pretty neat. But unfortunately 2 4 shames are gone, so we would have to have the last 4 shame in hand if we want to make progress here. Of course, the Crisis Breaker would allow you to go ahead and ready. And so I think GA is just going to use this opportunity to go ahead and take the air ring off the table. Going at the fertile field since it's already been activated. Yakumo going to block here. 6 minutes the differential now on the clock, thanks to the connection problems from GA. We'll see how Canada chooses to deal with that if that becomes a factor. And here's a mid-defeat to bow Yakumo. Don't forget, though, about this Crisis Breaker. The Crisis Breaker effect, I think, should be able to ready Yakumo. And there's 2 of them, so you could also just ready one of the Crisis Breakers and bring him in instead. And so, yeah, we're going to see 1 Crisis Breaker used. And now we can tell which one it was. It was the one that was not bowed already. So just a pass here from GA. Maybe forgot about the Crisis Breaker effect and the fact that you can use it on other Berserkers and not just Crisis Breaker. That allows Yakumo to stay standing here. And now both of these guys are going to come in on Void, going into the Forbidden City, since this one, well, you can go to either one. I guess you want to go ahead and break this now while you don't have attachments on. And that way, that leaves you a safe haven to attack into next turn as well. So no defense here from GA. And actually, no, we are going to see a defense here. And so the Niiten pupil is going to come in to go ahead and defend. Let's see what cards GA has to try to stop this break. Now, keep in mind that if any point, if GA progresses to, higher than Johnny, then the other Crisis Breaker can be used to fly into the conflict. But that's not going to be the case. We just blocked here to prevent the unopposed, and we voided the Kagyu. Alright, I'm going to keep this Crisis Breaker around here. The rest of the card's going to go ahead and I drop down to 1 fate. So looking pretty good for Johnny right now. This board is pretty substantial, and card advantage is there for GA, but kind of slipping away now a little bit. And so now we see two Cunning Negotiators come out for GA, so only one's going to be able to be bought here. And it looks like, it'll probably take Johnny 2 turns to break here, unless something crazy can happen. Alright, here's a Butcher. That's obviously pretty big for Johnny, given that only 2 breaks are on the board for the Crane player. If this Needs and People can get buffed, then you can go ahead and you can actually block the Butcher with the Needs and People if he gets buffed. Can Cunning trigger Market of Kaze no Kami? No, it's only action abilities, and so Market of Kaze no Kami is a reaction. Unfortunately. Otherwise, I think Cunning would be insane, right? If you just go over to something like, I don't know, Upholding Authority and trigger it. And so that's why cards like the Unicorn card is kind of interesting because it can actually trigger those effects. Granted, you don't want to do Upholding Authority specifically, but because that's bad for you. First player here for Johnny, so I think you want to go ahead and try your best to break on political here. Interesting that he chose to rebuild this Iron Mine. I think what I would have done is just waited until this phase right now and go ahead and rebuild the Kuni Lab. That way that gives you a better shot of actually breaking this province on political. So we're going to see an attack of 11 here. And so not a ton of stats on the board for GA, but we are going to see 3 things defend. We'll probably just see Cunning Negotiator use its own duel to go ahead and honor itself. But with this kind of defense, it seems very likely that Johnny's just going to go ahead and, the Butcher is going to provide him the inevitability he needs to break the Stronghold for next turn. GA not going to have really anybody to block, to attack back in and get another break so that he can actually defend this Butcher coming up. So there's a Kakita Dojo with a Neaten Pupil to go ahead and bow the Shrudyaski, and that's going to honor the Neaten Pupil and make the Neaten Pupil buff. I guess I have to imagine that GA is sitting on another Tessin in hand at this point in time. Might have drawn it from Kagyu or from this turn just now. Yeah, so there's a Tessin coming out on the Neaten Pupil. Let's see if GA can actually get a break here. So, of the remaining cards that Johnny has on the board, none are very strong politically, and so it looks like we're going to see this Neaten Pupil go ahead and attack in on Paul. I haven't seen any rivals yet for GA, but it's going to be Paul Void going to the Fertile Fields. Based on Johnny's provinces that he has left, I actually think that you might have wanted to go ahead and... Oh, I guess this is probably shameful display, so maybe you don't want to do that. Shameful display would not be great. And so Johnny's not going to defend here, which is going to leave GA open for a military attack on, I guess, either air or earth. Both are pretty good. Johnny going to be able to draw a card here. GA. Oh, okay, here's Fight On, which is going to get voiced. So it seems like a decent trade here. Maybe a second Fight On for Johnny now. And second voice for GA. So Johnny now down to 1 fate. Third Fight On would be pretty pretty hilarious here. But something tells me we're not going to see it. But we're going to see Assassination instead to discard this Need 10 people. So that's going to bring Johnny down to 1 honor. Of course, he is going to have free reign on this air ring, and this Crisis Breaker can also make the Crisis Breaker leave if he really needs to gain the honor going into the next turn. But definitely a little adventurous here, and we're going to see this Political Rival come down on 0 fate now to go ahead and get the break. You know, if actually, thinking about it now, if you're afraid of getting something shameful, then maybe he should have gone into the Iron Mine instead. Tattooed Wanderer into the conflict. That will prevent the break and the honor loss too. But the Void Ring's still going to go off, and we're going to see the Shrudyaski get voided. So now it needs to make the choice between the Crisis Breaker and the Shrudyaski. But regardless, Johnny going to be able to go ahead and attack in on air. Thank you for the follow, Holyfield. Hope you guys are doing alright in the World Cup so far. And yeah, so there's the unopposed conflict going to the Market of Kazune Kami, which is completely safe haven, and that will be a break for Johnny. We're going to see the pass now from GA. And yeah, so that last minute Tattooed Wanderer there definitely coming in clutch for Johnny. Opting to keep the Shrudyaski instead of the Crisis Breaker, so he will gain the honor. And now I think as GA, you have to go ahead and probably just bid 5 here. I think the dishonor play is out the window. Keeping the Kakita Dojo is fine, but you have to make something happen here. This is kind of unfortunate because if Johnny's sitting on Way of the Crab here, he has a lot of juicy targets. You're probably going to have to kill the Kaizen. Let me see a dupe on Yakumo. Okay, Ground is pretty big though. That might save GA here. Here's Gallant Quartermaster. And here's a Caillou Envoy. So another Caillou Envoy coming out. Still enough fate for Oishi too. So I think Johnny, if you want to go ahead and sort of secure the break, you probably want to go ahead and buy Oishi, unless he's sitting on a Wicked Tetsubo, in which case he needs to have the fate for it. And buying Oishi would not be great. GA not choosing to bid 5, choosing to only bid 1 instead. And Johnny wisely choosing to just bid 3. And so here's the Way of the Crab. And this is a pretty tough choice. I mean, I think you have to sacrifice probably the Cunning Negotiator. If I had to pick one, you probably do the Cunning Negotiator because you need those military stats from Kaizen. Otherwise, you're just going to fall over to the Butcher. Chooses to sacrifice the Masterpiece Painter instead. That's interesting. So, I guess the Masterpiece Painter has the same number of military stats as the Cunning Negotiator, but sacrificing her also means that you lose access to whatever card is on the top of your conflict deck. And with hand sizes so small right now, every card kind of counts. Looks like we are going to see a political attack first going water. It will be at the fertile fields. GA Stronghold Province is an odd one. I didn't see what it was. What is it? It is... Oh, Driven by Courage. Okay. It's not super odd. I mean, it's stats, so that's pretty decent. And so we're going to see a double block here. Yasuke kind of has to block. 2 cards going to be drawn here for Johnny. We've only seen 1 Common Cause be played so far, so very likely that there's the second one sitting there. We'll go ahead and sack one of these Caillou Envoys to put the True Yasuke into the next conflict with the Butcher of the Fallen. Here's Return the Offense now coming out on the Cunning Negotiator versus Yakumo. It doesn't really do much, honestly. This Cunning Negotiator is not going to be able to block the Butcher. So I guess she's looking for a free way to honor this Cunning Negotiator, but again, it just doesn't really have that much of an impact. Here's Policy Debate now coming out. Oh, I think GA forgot about Yakumo's other text, which is that Yakumo cannot lose duels if you are less honorable. So maybe a slight mistake here, but again, I don't think it's super relevant. The Yakumo is going to bow here, but we are going to see Keeper of Water trigger, which is going to give Johnny a Fate and also give him a Keeper, or just one. So both players Keeper of Water and only seeing 1 Keeper each. Yeah, people forget about that part about Yakumo. I certainly don't remember it a ton, just because Yakumo is one of those cards who hasn't seen a ton of play in the competitive environment. It was always just a not quite good enough card. Obviously finds a place in this deck because of the keyword, or the trait rather. So here's an attack into Driven by Courage with just the Butcher. So this is actually pretty defendable, it seems, for GA. We can go ahead and see Kaizen get buffed up by the Driven by Courage. Watch Commander does come out on the Butcher. GA is still at 8 honor, and only 5 cards, so still comfortable to play some cards here. Six Strength Province. Yeah, that's essentially what it is. Makes it 7-7. There's a Fine Katana coming out on the Butcher now. think it's kind of unlikely that Johnny's going to be able to break this unless he has another Bonsai, and I think we've already seen 2 played. So we'll be asking a little bit for him to have that last card, and there is the Bonsai. I think we are out of cancels now for GA. Defend your honor in hand, but that's not going to make a difference. Maybe you actually should have gone ahead and done it and just bid to win. Again, you know, you're not going to win by dishonor at this point, so you need to have something here to make yourself not die. And Bonsai now coming out for GA. Do we see another Defend Your Honor from Johnny? I think we've only seen 2 so far. So still maybe a third one? No. Not available yet. 13 to 11. No break now from Johnny. Still sitting on 6 fate. Could see a Wicked Tetsubo drop in, and that could be the end of it. And there is the Wicked Tetsubo indeed. Do we have the last let go from GA? Some hesitation here. We've already seen 2 let goes. One was played on a Watch Commander, another one got canceled trying to get rid of this other Watch Commander on the Shrudyaski. GA is going to go ahead and pass here, which means that now this Kaizen's going to go ahead and get bonked. His skill is going to be set to 0, and that should be the game. Yeah, GA is going to go ahead and pass here. And that's it. So, good game there. I think, Johnny played pretty well. Had some fortunate starts at the beginning of the game, and I think maybe if GA had pressed the dishonor angle a little bit sooner, that might have helped out a little bit as far as choking Johnny out of some of these cards. So, regardless, if the deal was not sealed already at this point, then Canada is in fact going to go ahead and go up to 3-2, which means that they will be making the cut for the World Cup. So congratulations to Canada. Well played by the Philippines. And that should be it for this game. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Squeezing in just to face it. I don't know who the last seed is actually going to be. So obviously it sucked to face Spain, but kind of is what it is, right? At least you made the cut, and now anything is possible, right? So you should never be daunted by your opponent. Always play your best, and sometimes things can happen. So good luck to everybody in the cut, and we'll see you on another time.